Hello, my name is David Daniel Ball, and I am going to share with you some facts regarding the death of schoolboy Hamidur Rahman. These facts are facts that are known to New South Wales government, to anti-corruption authorities, to the police, to the Department of Education, to people that were supposed to be aware of the welfare of Hamidur Rahman, and to the people I believe whose negligence resulted in Hamidur's death. Hamidur Rahman died in 2002 of anaphylactic shock brought about from licking peanut butter from a spoon. He had been given a spoon by a teacher of his in front of all of his classmates, and he was instructed to lick peanut butter from that spoon. The teacher who gave the instruction had not been told about the boy's peanut allergy. However, the school was aware of the peanut allergy, and they had not passed that information along to the teacher as they had promised to me that they would. This is acknowledged by the New South Wales government in the Senate, who recently said that they were aware that the boy's dietary needs had not been taken into consideration. The government said the former teacher alleged that the school should have held but did not hold information about an unidentified student's allergies. What I said was to the person responsible for the boy's welfare that the boy had peanut allergy, that it was severe, and that the boy could die. I was told to shut up about it. When the welfare teacher told me to shut up about it and mind my own business because, as he argued at the time, that was the student's welfare and the student's health and nobody else's business, I also raised it with the boss of the welfare officer because I had hoped to get the welfare officer into trouble. But the supervisor, the boss of the welfare officer, echoed the same response. And if not long afterwards, I was dismissed from that place of work. That is not in dispute. After the boy died, about a year after I was dismissed, having warned the school about the boy's peanut allergy, and after the boy had died, I had been complaining to my former employer about the way that I had been dismissed. My former employer got a legal officer to get in touch with me to say that they would not discuss the illegal dismissal with me, and they would ignore me and anything I said after that because the boy had died. And I said, look, I didn't have anything to do with the boy died. I just basically warned the school a year in advance, and then I realized that they were covering that up. I hadn't read the coroner's report at that time. I had not wanted to involve myself in any investigation regarding that because I had thought that I would prejudice any investigation because I had my own axe to grind from having been illegally sacked from that workplace the year before. All things being equal, I would never have made an issue of this. But I was being harassed, and the harassment continued. And I was being harassed, I believe, because I had information which I had passed on about the boy who had died from anaphylactic shock, and that was being covered up by the school authorities. Knowingly, they knew that they were covering up the information that I had passed on to the school authorities. I got legal advice about what I should do about my own case, and I was told that I would be allowed to write about it, and so I did. And a new law was passed by the New South Wales government preventing me from being able to speak as a private citizen. That was called the New South Wales 2004 Teachers Code of Conduct. A political appointment was made, I believe from the Premier's office, and a person was installed in a position of seniority who ordered me to delete my writings. I had approximately 2.5 million words of writings. Not all of it were to do with Hamidur Rahman. In fact, very little of it was to do with Hamidur Rahman. Most of the writing that I did was publishing links to newspaper articles covering the case. When the harassment of me got too severe, when my students started being targeted by people who were harassing me, I was left with no choice but to bring the matter. I couldn't bring it to the Department of Education, I had to bring the matter to the minister. I waited until after a state election so as not to influence the political process, and so as in the hopes of dealing with another political party which didn't win. And I ended up dealing with a politician who I believe to have been involved with the cover-up and the corruption. They ignored me, and they admitted that in the Senate. They didn't have a proper investigation. They gave me a telephone call from a junior officer, and the junior officer restricted what it was that I was allowed to talk about, and they never asked the questions to find out what it was that I was complaining about. I was left with no recourse but to resign because I needed to protect my students. One student had already died and other students had been very, very terribly treated, and in order to protect them, I had to resign. But in resigning, I would be allowed, because I would no longer be covered by the 2004 Teachers Code of Conduct, to be able to speak about these issues. I brought my issues before the free press, and they have been suppressed. I have been given any of a number of different excuses. The most compelling excuse that I have been given as to why my story will not be reported by the press is because they are afraid that they might be sued for what it is they may report. I have done nothing wrong. I resigned in order to protect my students. What I saw is not in dispute. The government acknowledges that I told the school about the boy's peanut allergy a year before he died, and I was ignored. The government admits that my story has been covered up by their officers within the public service. So you would think that I'd be able to complain to anti-corruption bodies about this particular issue. A boy has died out of what is likely to be negligence. You'd think I'd be able to complain to an authority about that. I have been invited to take to court to sue individuals, but no individual is responsible for the death of this boy. It has been the Department of Education. It is something that has happened as a result of corruption and collusion, and the government has been allowed to cover this up. And they have been aided, to a degree, possibly willingly, by the free press. I have got no more legal avenues to be able to complain. But what I can do is complain in the political arena. I have done nothing wrong, and yet I have lost my job. I have been illegally black-banned from work. I may lose the place where I live. Hamidur Rahman's parents have been appallingly treated by the authorities who have covered up this issue. There are serious shortcomings and flaws in the coroner's investigation, and these shortcomings are obvious and clear, but nobody has taken a look at it. This is unacceptable. But when I have to, when it becomes necessary, I can be the strongest man in the world, and I will have my story told.